Morning guys, Dave Goodyear here at Homestead Flatrock. Today I'm going to be working on our food forests, and I kind of mapped out some of this before on the video series and the drone shots and whatnot. So I've constructed a bit of a plan, and I'm going to start moving around mulch. So when I first started this project, we actually had trouble getting our hands on large amounts of ramial wood chips. Luckily, Hurricane Larry went through and it left people with lots of fallen trees and branches and all that kind of stuff. And I scored 15 single axle loads of, I guess, what I would call kind of ramial wood chips. It might be a little finer than that, but there's lots of there's hardwood and softwood in it. I'd rather have more hardwood, but luckily I've reached out to local people who are clearing out ditches and whatnot from alders, and they're dropping everything off here. So I have a chipper now, and I'm chipping stuff up. So I rented this little John Deere, and this will be good enough for what I need to get done here today. It's a 1025R, kind of one of these garden tractors. Has a front end loader on it. There is actually a backhoe attachment, but I had them take it off because I need to get into some pretty tight areas, let's say. One of the areas I've been working on with my own wood chips is actually what I'm gonna kind of call maybe what's going to be the chicken garden, which is actually in behind the chicken coop. And you can see the extent of it. It goes pretty far down through the trees, and luckily I had lots of fallen trees after Hurricane Larry, so I built up these check log terraces that eventually, I know they'll rot away, but by that time the roots for the trees and stuff will kind of all be in here, and it'll keep the soil from eroding, along with other things like nitrogen fixers and comfrey and all that kind of good stuff for permaculture gardening. So behind here, it may seem like it's not necessarily a great area and in shadow, but in fact, right up until about 2 or 3 days ago, the ground here actually gets full sun almost through till, you know, kind of the 5th of November or so, which means that it probably starts sometime around, I would say, the middle of February in terms of light coverage. So overall, it's still a pretty good area, and it's really sheltered. So getting in here would have been impossible with a tractor, but that area is actually extending all the way out to the driveway, and it's coming all the way out to here. So it's about a 30-foot span by probably, 60 to 80 feet, which is a pretty big place. Now there are some big evergreens here, and I am a little worried about one of them. So one of them is going to come down this year. The other one's going to stay there for now, but it will possibly end up getting moved. So you'll see that what I've done is I've sheet mulched under the wood chips using leaves, because it's that time of the year. We have lots of bagged leaves going on around the city. So every day on my way back from work, I just grab a full truckload and I dump it off here. So here we have all of this already sheet mulched with leaves. Now this is a great area. Basically, it always gets sun, and for the most part, it's always sheltered. It's sheltered from the north wind with this windbreak of evergreens, and it's sheltered from the south and the west with a shelter belt of evergreens and the house. So I got plans for all these areas, and I'm going to show those, but for now I need to get moving mulch. Now there is one area that's pretty far away, and I'm not sure exactly how I'm actually going to get up there in a tractor, and it's going to be a pain. But the main area, well, I call it the main area, but It's basically up in the bottom end of our garden. So it's way up there by that shelter belt of trees. So I gotta, for every scoop in the John Deere, I got to cart it all the way up there. So I'm going to leave that section for last and concentrate on getting the other sections done. Now, it's been a while since I've actually driven a tractor, probably 12 years, but they gave me a quick lesson and I remembered things quite quickly. So now we'll fire this thing up. I think it's about time for people to get out of bed anyway, and get it going. See what we can accomplish here today. 15 loads to move. So this is one of these cases where you work smarter, not harder. That thing moves a lot of material. I'm after moving now at least several cubic yards in maybe 10 minutes or so. It's about an hour and a half later, so this thing can do some major work. So I've moved all of this up along this south facing edge here that was leaf mulched. The pile now is about half the size, so I've easily moved kind of 7 dump truck loads maybe. I got a pile here just gonna have to be raked down over the hill. The hill's a little too steep for the tractor, I think, and I've just kind of assorted piles in here and I'm gonna rake out, but the expansive area here is pretty big. So next section is actually out in front of the garden. It's fairly sizable. I'm thinking about putting maybe some sort of a nut tree here, maybe a chestnut. It will grow taller than these guys, and these guys will act as a great windbreak, I think, for a chestnut, which is fairly tall. The one I was looking at, I think, is 30 to 40 feet, but I plan on keeping it pruned, and it's going to be situated right here in the middle of this section. And I got some nitrogen fixers and whatnot that are going to go in amongst it. Now, luckily, these evergreens, these little guys, had seeded from that row, and I've dug away the grass from these and I've mulched them, and they seem to be doing really well. We'll see now next spring how they do once I mulch around them with some wood chips and kind of prevent the competition. But they definitely look greener than what they were when I first discovered that they were here. So anyway, next section now is to dump these 2 loads kind of over here where this nut tree is going to be. Like I said, it's in the shadow right now this time of the year, but once you get, let's say, kind of towards the end of October, it's actually quite a bit of light, and a nut tree will be fairly tall. And I don't expect these white spruce to grow very much more. And my plan is eventually is that the windbreak of, I guess, evergreens is probably going to be more out here towards the front. And then these are going to get hacked down, and there'll be another windbreak down below on the property. So that's a long time, but I got a plan for it now. post, I guess, spreading all that mulch. And I've since had quite a bit of time to rake it out and kind of get things situated the way that I want for our food forest plan. So I'm up in the west end of our garden right now, where I've tried to kind of map out as much edge as I can. We have this edge that runs all the way in here. It's a nice sheltered area in here. Runs all the way along the edge of the property. And you can see it kind of takes a turn. It comes out here as an island here in the middle. And this area will have haskaps. One of the apple trees here is going to be moved. And another apple tree is getting planted back here. Plum, serviceberry, a few sea buckthorn berries, and a whole load of rhubarb, lupins, and you know, the kind of, you know, plants that we expect to find here in Newfoundland, based on at least my observations. So let's move to the second section. Here's a view looking back up at it. So, you know, it's more of a forest edge, and I'll fill this in, and eventually it will get, you know, filled in, you know, with time, 5 to 7 years. There was a natural forest edge here defined by these black spruce all the way along, and it's super windy here today, but despite wind and the trees moving, it actually is pretty good here. It's not too bad. So this is a fairly sheltered area, and you can see, I mean, there's a fairly long expanse, goes all the way along, and you know, it lends itself well to a few taller fruit tree varieties here. I'm thinking some sort of a plum, maybe a beaked hazelnut, and a gummy berry up front where it kind of gets shade first. So you may notice a pattern. You know, I'm basically going kind of 2 trees for every, I guess, 1 nitrogen fixer. Now, whether or not that's necessary, I don't know, but people say that, you know, in northern climates they aim for kind of 25 to 30%. So you're on the side of caution. 30% nitrogen fixers is the plan for these areas. Now I'm going to step out into this area. It's super windy right now. I'm going to try to see if I can see some of it just from here, but this area that goes all the way down in behind the chicken house, you can see it's pretty windy out there. Those trees are really moving, and eventually a couple of these are going to have to come down. They are starting to die back, as these fir typically do in Newfoundland. So this area here is fairly expansive. I don't have the plan completely finished yet on paper, but I will get to it. In the meantime, let's jaunt across to the back of the chicken coop where it's actually not quite as windy. It's like a different world. I mean, the wind is blowing up above, but in here it's actually not. Now I'm on the north side of the chicken coop, and despite being on the north side, this area right here, actually this whole strip all the way along, gets lots of sun for the most part. Now some of it's diffuse, so I'm planning on adding a few things here that I know will tolerate some shade. So we're looking at, you know, gummy berries, maybe a couple of pawpaws to try. I'm not saying they are going to grow here, but they tend to like some shade early on, and then as they become full grown, they like more, I guess, direct sunlight. Down in behind the compost section, there's another section down here that I'm planning on adding a mulberry tree, which I haven't got around to yet. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me. We're here at the Homestead at Flatrock. This is the Flatrock Food Forest. You can reach out and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at FR_Homestead, on Facebook at the Homestead at Flatrock, and, well, here on YouTube, the Homestead at Flatrock. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.